Evening, everyone. My name is Crystal Edwards. I am the superintendent of Lynchburg City Schools. I am happy to be here tonight to present our conversations in the community. Tonight, we're going to be talking about SROs, school resource officers. And I have some distinguished guests with me tonight who are going to join me in this conversation. I'm going to start off over here with Officer Ramirez, who is joining us, one of our SROs. A familiar face, Chief Zudema, whom all of you know. And to my left over here, our Director of Student Services, Ms. LaTanya Brown. So tonight, our purpose is really to share with you what our school resource program is about. We have a partnership with Lynchburg Police, and through that partnership, we have a memorandum of understanding, which outlines the roles and responsibilities. But together, tonight, we hope to share with you and give you an open view of what it's like with this partnership between schools and the police department. And it's probably not what you're thinking. Our partnership is very, very unique, and we're very proud of our relationships. And that's one word you're going to hear a lot tonight, relationships, relationships. So on to our agenda. Tonight, I'm going to share with you the vision and the mission of our SRO program and our MOU partnership. We're going to talk about that MOU, which is posted on our website, and we want you to give us feedback about the MOU. We have a second meeting planned with our Board of Ed on November 17th. It is a work session where we're going to talk about our MOU. And why are we talking about our MOU? It's our 2-year anniversary. Every 2 years, we sit down and review our partnership. We look for things that are going well. We look for ways that we can improve. And the chief and I get to sign a new partnership. That's this year. So in December, we're going to sit down and sign a new partnership. But before we do that, we wanted to engage our community in a discussion about our program. In addition, you're going to learn about how we select SROs and what kind of training is necessary for SROs. And more importantly, what impact do SROs have on our student body, our student population, and our educational program in general? And then finally, how do SROs help us with our first goal on our strategic plan, student growth and development, and reducing juvenile delinquency? Chief Zudema.
Well, thank you, Dr. Edwards, and I appreciate you having us here and inviting us to this. It's very important for us. The school resource program is something that we've had in existence since the late 90s, so for more than 20 years here in the city of Lynchburg, something we're very proud of. It's a great way for our men and women of the police department to engage and interact with the community, especially our students and the staff and faculty at our schools. And so this MOU is a way to really establish a written document to make sure that both sides understand what the expectations are of the officers from the school's behalf and, of course, of the school from the officers' behalf. And it's really a collaboration. It's an important piece of information, this document is it serves as a guideline for our staff at the schools and our staff in the police department to make sure that we're serving the students as best as we possibly can. The school resource officer program, we have 2 high school resource officers, one at each EC Glass and Heritage, and then we also have a resource officer at each of our 3 middle schools in Lynchburg. So great program. I think it's an awesome way for our officers to engage our youth in a non-enforcement capacity. And what you'll hear a lot throughout the evening tonight, I think, in this discussion is that the goal of these school resource officers is not for our officers to be in these schools arresting young men and women. They're there to be just what their title says. They're there to be a resource. They are mentors for our young men and women. They provide hours and hours of their own time, and you'll hear from Officer Ramirez in a few minutes and some of the stuff she does. But they're at school events, they're at basketball games, football games, they're at concerts, they're at gatherings, you name it. If there's something going on at the school, you'll see the officers there and involved. So they're providing a lot of positive interactions, and they're really investing in our children. They're a part of the fabric of the community at these schools. I know they're depended on by the staff. I know they're depended on by the students, and sometimes they're really just there to give a listening ear to some of the students who are dealing with whatever they may be dealing with. So we're proud to be a part of this program. We think it's a great resource for our community, and we look forward to continuing on for many years to come. So with that, I'll turn it over to Officer Ramirez, and she can talk a little bit about her experience and as well as the selection process.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So just to let you guys know, there's multiple things that we do within the schools as an SRO. We are not there to be arresting children at all or making arrests. One of the biggest things that I love is that we have the opportunity, we have a lot of discretion what we do as far as charges. A lot of the things that we talk about within our unit is how we can work better as far as building better or stronger relationships with our students and actually being proactive to engage these students in a better way, to get them not put in the school system. So as far as maybe challenging them to play sports or challenging them to serve their community or challenging them to get A's and B's, it's just one of those opportunities that, you know, a lot of people don't see what we do behind closed doors. One of the great examples that I can just recently say, you know, 2020 school year has been very different for all of us, including the teachers, staff, administrators, us. And one of the things that I had the recent experience to do was, again, we had a lot of students actually that I can attest to that are having a very difficult time right now with online learning. One of the things that they can't get to quickly is Wi-Fi, or, you know, they're having challenges with using the computer. And, you know, I'm a great example. I struggle with the computer myself. So talking to children out on the street, I'm like, hey, how are you guys doing with your schoolwork and whatnot? There's a young man that I noticed that he was on our books a lot as a runaway juvenile. And it was one of those things where I took it upon myself and I went and sought him out, saw him riding the streets, and, you know, had a casual conversation with him. Me and him, throughout the last 2 years that I've been at Glass, since he's been going to school there, we've built a relationship. And I was able to go ahead and say, hey, buddy, look, you're on our wall as a missing juvenile at our police department. Let's do something about this. And, you know, I challenged him. I went, spoke to his teacher, said, hey, listen, I have this young man that's having a hard time, having a difficult time with his online schoolwork. What could I do? Can I please get a packet made for him and go drop it off to him to his house? Can I go ahead and make sure that he's logging on to his emails like he's supposed to be? And, you know, again, within the relationships that I built with the teachers and the student, I was able to get a packet ready for this kid so that way he could go and he could do and complete his schoolwork. And, you know, on my days off, I was actually going to school and picking up these packets so I could go deliver it to his house, and just checking on him from time to time. That's just a small example, like a recent example. So, you know, we're not there to, in any way, by any means, make arrests. We're there to build relationships with these kids and make them succeed and be successful. We want them to be successful. That's our biggest goal. And we talk about our selection process. You know, I've been through 3 selection processes as selecting and being part of, and it's been an honor being able to choose these SROs. One of the things that we look for is an experienced officer that is able to make quick decisions, right decisions, but the right ones, the ones that are going to benefit the student at the very most and benefit the school. We also look for someone that's very engaged within the community as well, because it's very important. Again, our biggest mission is to build relationships with the students and keep the school safe and keep the staff safe. You know, there's a lot of things that we've done as far as training with de-escalation and stuff, and if anything, you know, we need an officer that's going to be able to talk down a student rather than be quick to arrest a student and put their hands on a student. You know, one of the things I tell officers all the time, swallow your pride. It's nothing great to be quick to put someone under arrest. Half the time, if you take the time to speak to these students, and that's what we're looking for during our selection process, is that these officers are able to engage and talk to students and talk to individuals and de-escalate them, so that way we don't have to go into a physical use of force situation or make an arrest. And a lot of times, we're just there to listen and help these students make the right choices so that way they don't get in trouble.
So as I listen to Officer Ramirez, I'm thinking about our mission. every child by name and by need to graduation and beyond. And I think in just hearing you talk about the needs of kids and how you as an individual SRO have responded, it fits nicely with what we do here at LCS when we talk about every child. Our SRO program, again, positive attitudes and building relationships with students and just teaching them the value of the legal system and civic responsibility. I always say the world's a stage and kids are always watching us and they're learning from us adults, and that everybody is a teacher as kids watch us. And that's not different for our SROs. Our children are learning a lot from them. They are engaging with them. And they also are just a natural, right on the spot career awareness. Anybody who's interested in the program. As a matter of fact, we have a police program in our schools for students who are interested in it. So it's nice for kids to be able to just talk to them about their career choices, about their career path, as well as just other things that are going on in the community as well. The research shows that SROs are so very, very important. They are a deterrent in our school, and not so much in a way of we're arresting kids, because I think you've heard that enough that we are not arresting kids. We are investing in kids, and that's what part of our SRO program helps us do as Lynchburg City Schools. We care about our kids. I can't tell you that enough, especially during COVID. I mean, as we speak, I'm sure some of my teachers are on the phone with children right now checking up on kids. And we value the partnership that we have with the police department to make sure that our kids are healthy, that they are safe, that their needs are being met, and not just their academic needs, but their social, emotional needs as well, their safety needs as well, so that we can provide for them. So it is a great way to prevent things from happening rather than responding after they happen. So I am grateful for that partnership that we have. Our SROs here at LCS, we have a couple, and I'm going to let Chief Zudema talk a little bit about them. One of them is right here with Ms. Ramirez, but we have others as well. So, Chief.
Thank you again, Dr. Edwards. So our 5 school resource officers that we have, as you've heard from Officer Elsa Ramirez, she's at EC Glass, and she's one of our senior school resource officers. She's been there for a while, and I always tell people she bleeds Hilltopper blue. There's no question about that. If there's anything going on at EC Glass, whether it's during her time that she's working or not, she's involved in it. There was a tragic situation a year or so ago where there were a lot of students impacted by a crime that occurred in the community, and she came out and helped the staff deal with dozens and dozens of students and help them work through that challenge. And that's just that doesn't just speak to her character, but that speaks to her compassion for these young men and women. We don't put officers in these schools just because they want a different assignment. We put them in there because they really want to work with these students, and these officers are selected because we agree as a police department and school staff agree that they're the right people to be in those positions. So Elsa does a great job there, and you can see her going down the hall and kids' faces just light up when she comes down. At Heritage High School, we have Officer Gerwin Thompson. And Gerwin is someone who is probably one of the most positive and caring people that you'll interact with. Although he's a very big, tall guy, I have to look up to him whenever I see him. He's someone that has just got such a soft and gentle touch with the students, and I know they enjoy having Gerwin over there. He's done a great job over there, and the biggest challenge I usually have is the staff saying, can we leave these school resource officers there forever, right? They want to keep them for the entirety of their career, and in a perfect world, we'd love to do that, but we also like to give other folks opportunities and develop other officers because we think that's a great way to do that. At Lincoln Middle School, we have Officer Robert Sachs. Although this will be his first year as a school resource officer, he's not unfamiliar to Lynchburg City Schools. Officer Sachs actually serves as an assistant wrestling coach over at Heritage High School, and he's got a passion for students and passion for youth in our community. This is something, we don't ever force people to engage in the community as police officers. This is something that he has a passion for, and Robert is also one, if you follow any of our social media, that was, I say caught in a good way. He was driving around the Target shopping complex several months back and saw a homeless gentleman there that he knew was in need of some food. So without even stopping and talking to him first, he drove over to Chick-fil-A, grabbed himself and this gentleman a meal, and then went and sat down with him next to the building and ate with him. And that was captured on social media. And that's just a small example of the kind of character we're talking about with our school resource officers. At Dunbar Middle School, we have Officer Gary Tackix. He is beloved there as well. Gary is also a member of our military in the United States here. And during this last school year, he was actually deployed overseas. So he was activated and deployed. And it'd be very easy with all the responsibilities that come with that for Gary to just say, hey, you guys are kind of on your own at the school. But he does a program that he instituted at Dunbar called Tackix Talks. So it's a talk he gets together with a couple of students, and students can submit questions and they kind of interact, and he'll answer the questions and explain different things about what we do in law enforcement, why we do it. So while he was deployed overseas, he actually continued to do those Tackix talks remotely while he was overseas serving our military. So that again just speaks to his great character. And then last but certainly not least, we have Officer Brittany Hall, who is the school resource officer at Sandusky Middle School. And Brittany, I know I've talked to her several times. Being a relatively new SRO, I've talked to her about, hey, how do you like it there? What? And she said, Chief, I love it. I absolutely love being able to interact with these students. I love being able to help them through different things and be a role model to them and kind of guide them and down the right path, right? And you know, it's funny because our school resource officers at the high school always make sure that the middle school ones are doing their jobs right and sending them good students, right? So Elsa's always cracking down on the middle school SROs to make sure, hey, you make sure you send me good students when you get done, right? So, but I say all that to say they serve as a team, and anytime there's something going on at one of the schools and they need additional resources, maybe it's just another officer to come and help out listening to what's going on or talking to other students, dealing with something that may have come up in the school that's got folks upset. They help each other out. And they'll shift around to help each other at each of those schools. And all those officers are managed by Mike Smith, who's a sergeant over top of that unit. And Mike has been in law enforcement for over 25 years. So again, someone that's got a good understanding of what's needed in our school division. But I couldn't be more proud of our team of school resource officers. They do a great job in our schools, and they represent the LPD in a very professional manner at all times.
Thank you. So we've heard a little bit about the officers, but let's talk a little bit more about training for becoming an SRO. As teachers and educators, we do a lot of training in adolescent development and as you said, how to de-escalate, how to respond, how to educate. And anybody who's been in a classroom, substituted in a classroom, knows that you have to have a special heart for children to do that job. And I would extend that and say the same is true for our SROs. We have a pretty impressive training program that our SROs participate in addition to some disability awareness training, conflict resolution, de-escalation techniques. They do restorative justice, cultural competencies, a whole bunch of things that actually overlay with some of the training that we do as educators. But it just helps us as a team relate to our students and give them the best services possible. And my person on my side, who I'm so proud of, who helps us with training every year to make sure that every new administrator, every new teacher that we have this training is Director Brown. So I'm going to ask her to talk a little bit about what you do and some of the training you've offered us.
Right. Well, every year we meet with the SRO officers in our school administration. Over the summertime, we bring a lawyer in to go over the MOU. As we go over the MOU, we divide it into sections and we chunk it. We give live conversations and real life scenarios as we're going through to make sure that it's applicable to the work that the SROs are doing and the work that we are doing as the school officials. Making sure that we do not cross that fine line of when do the SROs intervene versus when do school officials intervene. It's important throughout that training, though, that we continue to talk to each other and have clarity in terms of roles, expectations, and responsibilities, because that carries over into the classrooms, that carries over to the schools and the community, thus building a greater respect that our staff have for each of us and also our students and parents. So with that, Some of the training, additional trainings that we've participated in together have been restorative circles and conflict resolution. We sat down together and participated in a training as a team to hear each other's side as we talked through different conflicts to see how an officer would respond versus a school administrator would respond. We went through bullying training together and talked about harassment. What does it look like? And how do we together come up with preventions and interventions working with the students, not just in school, but outside of school. And when we're starting to have social events, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, Snapchats, what are the conversations are we having with the students in terms of what are the students' rights? How do the students have a voice? So along with, when we're discussing discipline, if we're talking about weapons and drugs, what impact do those weapons and drugs have within the community? Well, we're not bringing the SRO in to talk about punitive things. We want to educate our students. So we ask our SROs to come in to do some educational articles or conversations or real conversations on drugs and the impacts of drugs, not only for them as a student, but for them as a family. And how does it impact the community for the long haul? So working together as a team, we do a lot of trainings. We talk about mental health and how does it impact not only the students, but also our staff. And when we have events in the community, guess what? There are topics for conversations for our next trainings. So each year, we reassess the school year and we look for our grows. We pat ourselves on the back for the glows, but we have grows and we know that. And we work hand in hand as a team each year to build productive training sessions to meet the needs of the grows that we need to work on.
Thank you. And I would be remiss if I just take a look at that photo. And I remember hearing that Officer Ramirez is at EC Glass, but as I look at those children, either EC Glass kids have gotten really, really young. And we haven't mentioned this at all. We talked about the 5 resource officers at the high school and middle school. But what you may not know, but you can see here on the slide, is that they also go to our elementary schools. And you can catch them reading, you could catch them serving, you could catch them engaging, showing up at their shows and events as well. And again, I'm just grateful that they love to interact with our little people who love to interact with them. And it's a learning opportunity for our youngest students as well. So thank you for that too. Now on to our Memorandum of Understanding, which is the actual document that the two parties, we signed together, that outlines the roles and responsibilities. And again, this is posted on our website, and this is what we would like to get some feedback from the community a little bit later. But what I want to do is kind of go through and highlight some of the key areas in that document, and you all can jump in as necessary. Probably one of the biggest things that we do, and I think we do it well, is communication. This would not work if we didn't have an open line of communication, and that's at multiple levels. The chief and I communicate back and forth. The principals communicate with their SRO. Everybody communicates with Director Brown. She's our point person. And it's just so that we all are operating from the same information and responding in a very similar way to service our kids. Some of the things that are unique to the school division, and you've heard this, it is our job to educate kids, and it is our job to discipline kids. And discipline is not a bad word. It's a growing word. It's how we teach children how to be respectful, responsible, how to behave safely, protect themselves, and so on. So, and that is what we do. That is not the job of the SRO. They do not intervene in any of that. So that is primarily one of the major responsibilities that we have. We also have, as a division, a response to report. There are, as much as we enjoy all the fun times, sometimes there are some challenging times, and kudos to my staff because they are quick to reach out whenever we have to report any kind of alleged child abuse or anything like that. If there's a safety issue, a missing child, our staff is on it, and we work collaboratively with the police department to do that. Our principals are probably, the ones that work the closest with the SROs. And this relationship starts early in the morning sometimes and is in the midday and into the night. And often if there's something going on, that call could be at 1 o'clock in the morning. I think one of our incidents was really late at night. And, we all answer our cell phones and come out and respond. So again, we're grateful for that, for their assistance and their help. They help us get in and do what we do best, be preventative and intervene and provide necessary support for children, even if that's just food, clothing, safety, a good voice to listen to, a counselor, some security. So we're grateful for that. Director Brown, do you want to add anything else about the school side before we go to the police side?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. So, Chief, on your side of the MOU, is there anything that you want to share and point out specifically for our public?
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot in the MOU, and I would really encourage folks that are watching tonight or view this afterwards to take some time to look through there, because I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about the role of law enforcement in schools, and of course there's a lot of passion going around the community and around our nation right now. A lot of things are happening, and understandably so. So I'd encourage you to really read through, because I think what we do in Lynchburg, I think, is we do the partnership piece incredibly well on both sides of this equation, the school division and on the law enforcement side. So, I think from our perspective, one of the things that's unique about how we do this in Lynchburg is that, our officers that are working in our schools, they communicate with the other officers that are working in the community. And a lot of times they may know of what is going on in a student's life outside of school that they can help that student with inside of school, right? So, the student may be struggling in school for the day, and the reality is that, Elsa may be able to say, hey, this is what's going on in that student's life, this is what happened in their family or in their neighborhood last night, and it may help that administrator or that staff member better understand how to approach that student or that child, right? And then vice versa, the same thing may go the other way, right? The staff may be aware of something that's going on. They may share with Elsa to help her deal with, a family problem that's going on in the community. So I think the MOU really helps, and it very clearly spells out what can and should be shared. There is actually a law, Virginia code, that says there are certain things that I, as a police chief, have to make sure I relay to Dr. Edwards if a student is charged in the community with certain things, and that's all safety related. We want to make sure that first and foremost, above and beyond everything else, that our staff, our faculty, and our students are safe. If people aren't safe, they can't learn and they can't go about doing their business. So the MOU does a really good job of spelling that out. And again, you've already heard Dr. Edwards say this, but I want to reiterate it again. It very clearly spells out that the role of the SRO is not to be a disciplinarian in the school. And it absolutely also spells out very clearly that our goal as a law enforcement agency with school resource officers in our schools is for there to be an intervention and a prevention approach well before enforcement. Enforcement is really a last resort. That's something that we only take in very serious situations where there's a safety issue related to that. So you've heard Elsa talk about that. You've heard Dr. Edwards talk about that. So, we certainly think that the MOU is a good document, but it's always important to review it, as Dr. Edwards said right at the beginning of this, because things change and climate changes and other things. So, we look forward to hearing the feedback that we get from you as a community on this, and there's things that you have concerns with, and Dr. Edwards will speak to this in a little bit, but we want to hear what those are, because, we think that ultimately the collaborative approach that we take with the school division is the best way to go about it. And ultimately, the student's best interest is what we are all working towards. And that is, you could go around and ask anybody involved in this process. We are all trying to do the best we can to provide our young men and women with a bright future. So we're just happy to be a part of that.
Thank you. And just in closing, lots of people ask about who is the person who would be responding first. And this is where it's actually different. And everybody knows that you're first responders, but in schools, if something goes down, we are the first responders. It's the school staff, it's the principal that gets in there and does an investigation and talks to the students and gets all the information. And as Chief said, the SROs are just there for intervention and prevention. But I know that the public worries about that or has concerns about that, and I just want to make it clear that, and all my building principals are probably listening and backing us up, that they definitely get in and do their own, let me talk to my students, let me see what's going on with my kids, and look at all of the circumstances. Our first gut reaction, and this is our theme for this year, is lead with care. And even if we see a student in distress or a student who may be experiencing some trouble, the first thing that we want to do is seek to understand what's going on. And we often don't know what's going on in a student's life before we do respond. And then we respond as a team. So I felt like I needed to say that, especially now during the COVID time where we are in transition and bringing our students back to our schools after they have been out of school for quite some time. So many of them are going to need a little extra assistance, and we're here for them. Okay. In closing, so what we need from you, I've already mentioned that November 17th, we're going to have our school board meeting. It's going to be a work session, about an hour, to really just discuss the MOU with the school board. But there are two questions that we would like the community to give us some feedback on as you look at the MOU, which is, again, on our website. What would you like to see added to our partnership that will enhance the relationship that our students and our staff and our families have with our SROs? And then our second question is, what can we do to further instill trust between our students, our families, our community stakeholders, and our police force? We are one community, and that is very, very important to us. So we look forward to hearing your feedback, and again, we will collect that in enough time to present that and discuss that when we meet on November 17th at the school board work session. And before I turn it over for closure, I just want to ask my esteemed guests if anybody has anything else that they would like to add or say.
Sure. Yeah, I would just like to say, as a police department, we're committed to doing the school resource officer program, but not just doing it. We're committed to doing it right and doing it well. And the way we do that is by having these types of conversations, getting feedback from the community. And on a somewhat personal note, the first school resource officer in this school division was at EC Glass, 1998, I think, or right around there, was actually my older brother. And he was formerly an officer here. And so if for no other reason, I need to make sure I do it right, because if I don't, I'll be hearing a lot back from him, I'm sure. But we are committed to that. And, he and Susan Morrison, who was a principal there at the time, kind of, no offense, Rose, if you're watching, but they pioneered the school resource program at EC Glass. And they set that up for success. They did a great job there, and we added officers in years after that. So we're committed to doing that, and we are committing to providing the best officers that we can provide in conjunction with screening them with school staff to make sure that the young men and women of this community have the best men and women from our police department to provide them mentorship, leadership, and guidance as they work their way through school. So we're just appreciative of having the opportunity to be involved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I am Crystal Edwards. I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. We hope you learned a lot about our school resource program, and we look forward to your comments and your feedbacks by just going on our website and clicking on the MOU and providing our feedback. And for me, our family here, we'd like to say good night.